All right, welcome to Access Bellingham. I'm Eero Johnson. Today I'm going to talk about titles and text on screen. This is another one that's by request, and I'll warn you that this is going to be super simple. I really believe that, and I believe it should be. I think your titles generally should be very simple, very straightforward. The longer I do video, the simpler my titles get. The more I realize that if people are paying attention to the titles, then they're not paying attention to the story. If people are noticing, oh, what a cool title, then there's a really good chance that I'm in trouble, that this video isn't going to work. But if people are really wrapped up in the story, a really simple title is everything you need. So, more often than not, I try to keep it really simple. Titles are almost always the last thing that I do. My graphics in general are the last thing that I do. And all of it is built upon what I hope is a really strong story, a really strong narrative, interesting characters, nice looking shots, and then the titles just give information where necessary. There are really only three things I do when it comes to titles. There's obviously adding text, adding a background behind the text, and then maybe manipulating the image behind the title. So I might add a little blur, or I might do some color correction to make the title pop. Other than that, as I said, I let the video speak for itself. So let's dive in, and I'll just show you a couple of the things that I like to do. Alright, so again, I like to keep it really simple, and let's start with what is the most simple thing we can do. I'm going to come up here to my titles and generators window. I'm going to open up my generators here, and I'm going to add a background. No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add a solid. The custom solid allows it to be any color you want. In this case, we'll just keep it black. We have a black background. We're going to put a white text on black background. I really like using some of the text effects from the build in and out if I'm going to use an effect. And I think about my favorite is blur. You can play with any of them. And we'll call this Access Streams. Access Streams. All right, and Helvetica is a nice font. Helvetica is a really common font because it works really well. We'll go Helvetica Bold. We'll increase the font size a bit. And there we are. The most simple title you can possibly have. One thing I like about being able to use these text effects is up here in the inspector under T for text. You can go in and you can turn on or off the effect to build in or build out. So now instead of fading out, it's going to do a hard cut right now. So it fades in and does this hard cut out. Let's see, so I'm going to hit Option, I'm going to lift and then duplicate this. And let's try another font. If you want a, we'll try Times New Roman, again, just the most classic font that we all have access to. Where it is. Where is it? There we are, we'll make it bold. Great. Just for the fun of it, one of the nice things about Helvetica is that you have a lot of options in terms of the weight of the font. So let's use a thin font here. Very nice. And sometimes, again, I'm going to Option and duplicate that font. And then sometimes, of course, you're going to want a font with a little more personality. And like right now, I'm enjoying some of the handwritten fonts. I think they're pretty cool. That might work. You know, you can spend all day doing this if you're not careful. But sometimes you want to find a font that has a little more personality, just for the fun of it. Wiggly, apparently, is what this one is called. You might want to have something like that. We'll just run through them real quick and see what we did. All right. So those are 3 different styles of titles just over a black background. Now maybe you want to add some more. Maybe that's too boring for you. So maybe you want to add some color to your background. That's easy enough to do. Again, go into your inspector, go into your, select your background, and you can go right in and select different colors. And just for the fun of it, we'll use that because that's a fairly, I think that's our Access Bellingham green. Let's see. One of these is. Well, let's stick with that one. We've gone from black to color. Now we maybe want to even take it further to do something interesting. So let's put it over a piece of footage here. I grabbed a random drone shot of a coal train over our going through the bay. I'm going to do a quick color correction. This is outside of this tutorial, but we'll look at it real quick. I'm going to look at my video scopes here. I'm going to get my highlights up here, and they're already nice and high. This is completely burned out, but that's okay, or blown out. That's totally fine with me for what we're doing. Bring my shadows down. So my shadows are down here around 0. And I'm also looking out with my eye, seeing what it looks like. And now I'm going to adjust my midtones to get the look that I want. And I'm liking that. Let's say that's what I want. I'm going to bump up the saturation. There we go. All right. I'm going to duplicate access streams again, and let's put it right over this footage. Now we have a title that, instead of being over a solid, is over a picture or a piece of video. Comes in kind of quickly. Let's back it up and try again. All right, it's going to need a minute to render, but we do get a chance to see what this looks like. I like it. I'm just going to give it a moment to render. You know what it means. All right, let's give it a look. Lovely. Couldn't be simpler, and does everything I could want it to do. I think it's actually real pretty. Real engaging. So we've seen text over solid, text over picture. Sometimes what happens is you need to modify the image in order to make the text stand out. And how I do that is one of 2 ways. I will add a little bit of blur. Once again, we have a really nice picture. Now, if I don't want to use the blur, I can also do it by manipulating the colors. I'll add another color wheel. The text is obviously white, so to make it stand out, we're going to have to darken the background image a little bit. So let's just do that real quickly. There we are. And now it and now the text stands out. This is before, and there's after. Now, if this was at the end of the show, as you all know, you need it to say the producer's name. So I'll select my title. I would come up to my inspector, produced by Eero Johnson. And now I suddenly hate this font for this part of it. So because I just can't even look at that, I'm going to change the Eero Johnson to a different font, and then, and I still don't really like the way this looks, so I will select just the name and move the baseline so they're a little closer together. You know, you can, if you're not careful, you can play with this all day long. But you may end up with something like that, which I'm, again, not crazy about, but I'm... this isn't a class in design. This is just a class in how to add text to the screen and to give you a few things to talk about. And there we go. And that's titles. Now let's talk about our lower thirds. Lower thirds are the name and title, that you see often attached when you see someone on screen. So for example, if I'm talking on screen here, I'll go to my titles window. Again, I'll grab my blur because it's just a favorite of mine. And Eero Johnson, director, sure. And again, something like Helvetica New is, you know, it's really common for me to use. Helvetica is a great font. It's used all the time, and it should in general work. Now maybe what I'll do is I'll change the font of the title and shrink it down a little bit. I'll also tighten it up a little bit using baseline. And this is typically what I might do. Now,
the title.
In this case, we don't need me yammering at you. Let me turn this down. All right. It can be that simple for your lower thirds. Another thing we can do is, you're going to see me repeating the same ideas over and over again. Go to our generators, grab down to solids, and grab your custom solid. Down there, you rascal. We'll go into our inspector again, and we'll crop this solid so that it fits just behind our text. And then we can move it. There we are. And we'll even change the color. That's right, we're using that green color we liked so much. Ooh, that looks terrible on that. Let me do a different color. Changing our minds, changing our minds. All right, that looks nice. Again, you can change the fonts. You can, you can do whatever you want, but I recommend keeping it really clean, really simple, very readable. I think in general, audiences can't focus on that many things at the same time. And the best thing you can do is support what is already on screen. If an audience is listening to someone say one thing while they're having to read something else, that gets very confusing. Keep titles short and easy to read. That would be my advice. I realized as I'm doing this, I said this was going to be the simplest lesson. But now that I've done it, I realize that the concepts are simple, but how you get there can be a little bit complicated. You do have to start learning transitions, you have to learn generators, you have to learn text, you have to get comfortable with the inspector tab. So there's a lot here. And a lot of this knowledge can translate from titles to other parts of the video. I would recommend getting really, really strong with this skill set. All right, I'll let this train carry us out of this lesson into what I hope will be a wonderful week for all of you, and we'll connect again next week.